let's make one thing clear. Doing nothing is not the alternative. There are other alternatives. What we need is an alternative that takes people into account and makes people primary. If they're going to spray massive amounts of carcinogen in these deforested areas, they're going to be causing cancer in an urban area, and we don't know who it's going to hit. That is not taking people into account. We have to vote no on it. If people aren't going to benefit from this program, who is? Well, we know Monsanto is because they make Roundup. So what governments are doing is a program that will benefit these corporations. They're going to cut down these trees. Do you think they're going to just chip them all out? No, they're going to sell them to the timber companies. Timber companies are going to benefit, not people. But they say they're going to chip the whole thing out. 2 feet of chips? You know what kind of fire hazard that's going to be? They're trading one fire hazard for another. And this is in places where there are no buildings. The reason why the hills burn in developed areas because the houses there explode. And because people don't keep their vegetation sufficiently away from the house. And that 91 fire would not have occurred if the fire department had listened to the weather report, because the weather report said that the wind was going to come from the northeast instead of from the southwest. Now, if they clear cut, we have the example of the Russian River. When you clear cut, you get landslides. Landslides destroy houses. That's going to, the property damage from clear cutting is going to be enormous. If they destroy this ecology, they're going to be destroying predators for rodents. There's going to be rodent infestations in an urban area in Oakland and in Berkeley. That's not taking people into account. On these grounds, we have to vote no. Now, I think we have to resist this attempt to criminalize an illegal immigrant tree. It doesn't work. They're part of an ecological system. Okay. What we need, and I have to emphasize this, one single project is not going to deal with this program. It's going to take a project of yearly maintenance. Yearly, people have to go up there and clear the brush, clear the ground of fire fuel. People have to go to houses to help people to clear away their vegetation. Okay. That money should be put to hiring the unemployed of these cities to help in that effort to help people clear away the fuel.
Thank you, Mr. Martinat.
Hi, my name is Dave Ely. I live in Berkeley over on Addison Street. I brought some posters here. Didn't have any place to put them. I'll put them right here. One says, "Here's your sign, welcome to the Berkeley Hills Wasteland." And the other one says, "Clear cutting equals clear stupid." My wife and I spend time up at the top of Clark Kerr campus, top of Dwight Way. There are a couple of beach volleyball courts here, big soccer field up at the top. There's a wonderful hike that goes up into the hills from there. And while she plays volleyball, I go on my hikes up there. The first 4 switchbacks are through the eucalyptus trees. And then it opens up into, I guess, a little more grassland and the brushland up to the top. I get to my wasteland, and I just imagine what that hike is going to be like when Oakland, I think this is Oakland land, your blue, it's on the blue chart. Those eucalyptus are going to be cut down. There's going to be no shade for this hike, and this hike now is going to be through this new wasteland. But the wasteland is going to be covered with very large logs that are staged to prevent erosion. I think of all the wonderful people in Berkeley that enjoy that hike. Very, very popular hike, especially on the weekends. Dogs, families hiking with dogs. That hike's going to be lousy. People aren't going to hike it anymore. So I like the solution which is not proposed. No action, Bad idea. EIS whole report, entirety, bad idea. Where's the middle solution from all the ideas that people have been throwing out? There are some middle solutions, and I don't feel they're represented very well in the EIS report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ely. Melissa Riley, and Ms. Riley will be followed by Morgan Schmidt-Fang.
I just found out about this meeting last night, and so I signed up so I'd have a place in line, and I have to say that I'm not sure what I want to say yet. It seems like a lot of issues have come out from people standing up here, and I agree with the previous speaker. I think there must be, or several previous speakers, there must be another path that leads to a better solution. I wasn't clear that the little that I've read so far, that the pesticides to be used are Roundup, and it seems that is a major problem. It's one thing to say that you're going to cut down on fire, but then the last part is, oh, but then we're going to douse it all with Roundup, and will it escape? Where does it go? How far? Who does it kill? Who does it affect? We've heard from many scientists who are very concerned about Roundup. And it seems like you follow down a path, and then you get to this one point that makes you want to readdress the entire issue and rethink it. I'm also concerned about how long these effects will last of the pesticide. Is this really clear-cutting we're talking about? Are we talking about, because I haven't read the report, and I didn't get a sense of it. Is it clear-cutting, or is it individual trees that are being delicately removed and delicately poisoned? And really, what time frame and what size area are we thinking about in trying to protect our beautiful world, our beautiful life, our beautiful neighborhoods? I walk in those hills almost every weekend, and I don't want to walk in a wasteland. How much will this plan really help in the long and in the short run? How fast will the natives come back, and how much help will they need? I see times when they've done various things up in those hills that have caused terrible erosion, falling down in the hillside with no sensitivity, just in little areas. What will happen with this? Will each area be determined how much erosion will take place? I sometimes feel like this is kind of like building barriers around Manhattan to prevent rising tides. We have an installed base. We naturally want to protect it because it's where our homes and our lives are. But is that really a reasonable thing to do? I love native plants, and I'm not that fond of eucalyptus, but I am concerned about the effects on the entire ecosystem and on people by doing what this plan purports to do. And I think there's a lot of questions about who really are the stakeholders? Who are the people that care most about this? It feels a little bit like it's the homeowners versus the nature lovers, and then with the native plant people thrown in as some on both sides. So I think even though there's a lot of people here, we have to think about how can we protect all of us, and how can we protect the larger world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. Morgan Schmidt-Fang, who will be followed by Lee Edwards.
I'm a lifelong Berkeley resident, born and raised here. My daughter was born and raised here too. And I oppose this project the way it's structured right now mainly because of the use of the chemicals. I've been hiking these trails since I was old enough to walk, which is almost 40 years. And I want, to have a space where I can walk around and not think like, am I inhaling, these chemicals? There's not many places in the world with 70,000 different chemicals where we can feel like we have a place, a refuge. And I sympathize with people who've built homes or who have moved into homes that are in the hills. I had friends who had homes that burned to the ground. In fact, I was right up the street right here and saw the fire come down the hill, and it jumped 24, which is an elevated 10-lane freeway, right? So that's about the biggest fire break you can imagine. You know, a freeway as tall as this ceiling that's 10 lanes wide, and nothing was going to stop that fire. You know, unfortunately, these homes are built like when you build in a floodplain. You know, this is a traditional fire zone. And, you know, like I said, I had friends whose homes burned to the ground, and I sympathize with that. But I don't think the use of chemicals and wholesale clear cuts is going to solve that when a 10-lane freeway, with my own eyes, in 10 minutes, the fire came down, blew up cars, blew up transformers with PCBs, burned houses to the ground, and I saw people running for their lives, and then that fire went right over the freeway. So taking out a handful of eucalyptus or taking out 100,000 eucalyptus isn't going to change what a firestorm will do. And also, and you know, putting in these chemicals. I mean, my mom died of cancer, my uncle died of cancer, my grandmother on both sides have had cancer, my grandfather had cancer, my sister has cancer. I don't think we need more chemicals. No. So, you know, the homeowners that are there and the people that are concerned about what's going to be sprayed there, you guys should all get together and figure out how to make this work so that we don't have to adopt this FEMA plan the way it's written, because it's not written in a way that takes everybody into account.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lee Edwards, and Mr. Edwards will be followed by Philip Stark.
I'm Lee Edwards, and I live in the Temescal area of Oakland. I just learned about this outreach yesterday, and that's one of my biggest concerns, that when you have something that impacts cross-jurisdictional areas, not just UC, not just Oakland, not just East Bay Regional Park, but hundreds of other jurisdictions, you need to get input from all those jurisdictions to get use out of that. And to the root core, everyone said it, but I'll just say it again, some quite eloquently. For over 100 years now, we have created a gum-based ecosystem up there. Let's all just say, yes, we have. And now what we need to do is figure out how we can protect that ecosystem, and how also simultaneously to work with the homeowners there to find out what we can do to make their lives safer up there. They have chosen to live in a dangerous area. I once lived in the Parkwoods Apartments. They burned down during the fire. I had a house up on Rockridge Boulevard. It was the last house standing next to the edge of the fire. I know the fear you people have. I totally understand that. But there must be a better way to taking care of your needs than having our federal government, which I have to say because of my political beliefs, borrow 60 cents for every dollar they spend, taking loans out to do something they're wasting their money on. It's ridiculous. So what I'd say is, use the 40 cents you have left that you're not borrowing, and help these folks make their houses safer and leave our ecosystem alone.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Philip Stark, and Mr. Stark will be followed by Carol LaPlante.
I live in the North Berkeley Hills. To the extent that this would actually help mitigate fire hazard, would help me. I live relatively close to where some of the cutting would be happening around. Can't hear me? Okay, sorry. I live in the North Berkeley Hills. To the extent that this would be effective at fire mitigation, it would help me. But living there, I'm well aware that I'm exposing myself to fire risk and to earthquake risk, being a stone's throw away from the Hayward Fault, so forth and so on. It's a risk that I'm voluntarily accepting in order to live there, and all the benefits that brings. One of the benefits that brings is proximity to the entire East Bay Regional Park system. My religion is trail running. My religion consists primarily of being on the ridge at sunset whenever I possibly can. On a daily basis almost, I'm in Tilden Park. I run 50 to 100 miles a week in the parks. I'm in Wildcat, Tilden, Sibley, Huckleberry, Redwood, Chabot, all of these parks, the Claremont Canyon. the effect on my quality of life, if this goes through, because of the toxics that are going to be dumped on the land, is going to be utter devastation. This is going to completely ruin my life. I will not feel comfortable going out there, exerting, and running through the Roundup. It's just not going to work, right? By profession, I'm a statistician. Sorry? We're a gas mask, thanks. By profession, I'm a statistician. I don't want to be a statistic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Carol LaPlante, and Ms. LaPlante will be followed by Beverly Potter. Carol LaPlante will speak next, and Ms. LaPlante will be followed by Beverly Potter.
I am a longtime resident of Berkeley and a longtime user of the trails in the East Bay Hills. Like the previous speaker, I'm also a runner, and I would be devastated by the destruction which is now planned. As an attorney, I find that the biggest problem is the logic underlying this proposed destruction of our environment. When the 1991 Oakland Hills fire happened, the fire people, the firefighters, were caught unprepared. They had poor judgment in the beginning when they initially thought the fire was out, which allowed it to get going. And then when they fought the fire, they were unprepared. Curbs needed to be redlined. They didn't know their way around the hills. They were caught unready. Since then, they have geared up enormously. There have been many fires in the East Bay Hills since then, and they've been contained successfully. This has been 22 years they've been contained. They know what they're doing. They need more resources, they need more help, but they have the matter under control. Now, when you weigh the logic in the environmental impact statement, they talk about the potential for water resources to be damaged, for the environment to be damaged if there was a catastrophic fire again. But we haven't had a catastrophic fire in 22 years, and we very well may not have one again. But on the other hand, the damage to the environment is an absolute certainty, and it's a certainty that animals, creatures, birds are going to lose their habitat. The report sort of suggests that, well, once the habitat's destroyed, they'll happily come back. They're fungible. They'll accept anything. That's not true. They may very well be dead, or they'll have no place to live. The same thing for the people who use our trails. They won't be able to come back to running in this wasteland. We've heard of the restoration that took place in Claremont Canyon. That was loving and careful and very limited and very small scale. Compare that to the devastation of the clear cut on below the Lawrence Hall of Science, and you can see what's planned here. It's simply clear cutting followed by poisoning. There's no justification for this. The logic is skewed. The logic is wrong. You should consider what we're dealing with now, which is a very capable fire department, and they should be given more resources instead.
Thank you, Ms. LaPlante. Beverly Potter will speak next, and she will be followed by Helen Kozoritz-Shoemaker.
My name is Beverly Potter. I live in the Temescal area. I'm not a friend of Bukes. I've got one fallen from my rotten neighbor on my yard right now. It fell yesterday. I don't like them. Nonetheless, I have two complaints about this situation. Number one, who notified us? Okay? How many people just found out about this yesterday? See that? It's your job to let us know. You don't boss us around, you fence. It's your job to let the people know. We didn't know. We're here. We're here because the people got us out, and these people are trying to run over us. That's the first point. We need to know, and it's our decision, not their decision. The second point has to do, another woman mentioned it, but I'm saying it again. The second point has to do with the kind of lying with statistics. This stupid thing is lying with statistics. This side is what they're going to do to us and our property and our land and poisoning us. This side is speculation. Speculation used to scare us. This side is false. So just like some other people, like Lee and some other people said, there are other alternatives to this problem besides inviting the Fed in. That's you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Potter. Now, Ms. Shoemaker, who will be followed by Stephen Gertenberg.
Can you repeat the name?
Boy, it's hard to follow up the previous speaker, but I'll try. My name is Helen Shoemaker, and I live in Piedmont Pines in Montclair. I've been a Hills resident since 1985. I support the no action alternative. The proposed plan is too extreme and will not achieve its purported goal, which is to reduce the risk of wildfire. Clear-cutting our urban forests and mass applications of pesticides will have negative impacts on wildlife, the watershed, erosion, and our quality of life in the hills. Where I live, it's predominantly, the trees are predominantly eucalyptus, acacia, and Monterey pine. So if they take those out, I can't imagine what it's going to look like after that. In fact, I have watched over the last few years up on Grizzly Peak. I'm sure all of you are aware of the cutting that's been going on up there. And now when I go up in the hills, you know, the area is becoming a graveyard of stumps. And I have seen a lot of mass applications of pesticides very close to homes up in the hills. And I wonder about that, what the impacts are of that. We need to preserve our trees, especially at a time when there are a lot of concerns about global warming and carbon emissions. And as we all know, trees sequester carbon, so what are we doing? As a longtime Hills resident, I understand the risk of fire, just as I understand that living in California, we have earthquake risk. I mean, there are certain risks that we have to live with, don't we? So, clear-cutting our trees will not be effective in stopping wildfires, as wildfires are part of our natural ecology. And I just don't want taxpayer funds wasted on a project that will degrade our natural environment and will be ineffective in achieving the proposed project goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shoemaker. Stephen Gertenberg, and Mr. Gertenberg will be followed by David Romaine.
My name is Stephen Gertenberg. When I was young, I watched the Stone Canyon above Los Angeles. The wildfires jump the canyons, sometimes half a mile or more. There were no eucalyptus trees present, but you certainly don't need eucalyptus trees to have a firestorm. My stepfather ran fire crew camps. My mother requisitioned them. My sister has done rehab after forest fires, and my brother-in-law was a forest fire fighter. So I have a family that's been around, and I've been around fire understanding my entire life. And there is nothing about taking out some eucalyptus trees and leaving the dead wood sitting there that's going to stop fires. Just like if you're on a spit of land out in Pensacola, another place I've lived, and people build homes and wait for the hurricane to come wipe them out, that federal money should be used to build a wall to block them from the sea they wanted to be next to. I don't see why destroying a park you put your house next to be quote-unquote safe, which you would not be, makes any sense. You're there because there's a frickin' park there. You want to be near the park because it's a park. The next part's about eucalyptus itself. It is not native, and I can understand wanting to carefully, like they did in parts of Claremont, take away some eucalyptus and plant native trees. That's not what's happening here. Eucalyptus are very good at coming back in disturbed areas. And they come back from the roots. That's part of how they've spread so fast. So if you clear cut this thing and you put mulch over the top, what's going to come through? The eucalyptus from the roots. You're taking away every bit of competition for the eucalyptus and encouraging it to reforest itself. So you've got at best an extremely temporary way of cutting back eucalyptus, leaving the deadwood, so you've done nothing to reduce fires, and then encouraging that eucalyptus to make a monoculture with no animals, no broadleaf plants, no insects. The impact would be horrific. And you've totally taken away the resource of the beautiful parks.
Thank you, sir. David Romaine. And Mr. Romaine will be followed by Patty Rich.
Good morning. I'm David Romaine. I'm a former urban planner and a retired teacher of physical geography at the community college level. My main address is to the plan to reduce hazardous fire risk. And speaking to that, one of the first problems that I see with fire risk is particularly firestorms. They are a result of overcrowded forests. Parts of the areas that we're talking about have been cleared, but there are other parts that are overforested. And I think if they're really serious about addressing the fire hazard, the first thing they would do is go through and reduce the tree population in the overcrowded areas and plant some trees in the areas that are mainly covered by grassland or nothing at all. So for me, the first step would be to thin the forests and plant trees where trees need to be planted, because this is a forest. One of the biggest problems that came out of the last firestorm is these huge areas that have surfaced by one road. The hill above the Caldecott Tunnel, for instance, there's one road serving all those people up there. And now there are twice as many people living up there than there were at the time of the last fire. In effect, we're creating huge cul-de-sacs. The area above the Berkeley campus, the stadium, is another area where one road goes in and serves lots of houses. In event of an emergency, you have a fire truck. That, to me, is the first thing that needs to be taken care of. Another thing that people need to come to grips with is that it's nice to live in the hills, but you're living in the forest, and the forest works a certain way. So we need to take into consideration that part of it. The risk is something that many of the people living there have bought. The other thing that needs to be done is supporting the forest for its own sake, because that's what holds the whole ecology together. We build too many buildings on the hills, and that creates a whole erosion problem, and that's the other thing that we need to take care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romaine. Liz Rich, who will be followed by Edward Bavart.
Hi, my name is Patty Rich. I'm a research scientist for the state of California. I'm against this project. It is ridiculous that we were going to be cutting down the forest to serve the homeowners who choose to live there. The hills and the coast were once filled with redwoods. I don't know if any of you guys remember this, but humans decided to cut them down. So this is our problem that we created, why the eucalyptus trees are here. Having said that, some of us don't like the eucalyptus, and they are very, very hard to deal with, but we need other plans, like many people have said. Also, as a biologist, I was always taught that forests go through stages before they become their climax of what they ultimately end up to be. They were redwoods, and we decided to cut them down, and now we have to wait for those transitions to happen again. We can't just keep cutting down the forest and expect that humans know better than nature. We just need to let it be. Manage our houses so that we can manage the fires around our houses. But the logic that FEMA has come up with is like, I grew up in Tahoe National Forest. Should we cut down the whole forest because it might burn one day? No, you choose to live there because you love the trees. The other thing is, as most people have said, the Roundup is terrible. As a research scientist, I just saw a symposium at work where they were showing us that Roundup is an endocrine disruptor that changes your DNA for generations. So we're going to spray it in our plants, on our forests. It's already on all of our food. And so next thing you know, all of our children, their DNA is going to be changed. We need to stop this ridiculous behavior. If this is funded for the purpose of developing the canyons with fat houses, that's not what we need. This is a crime that we all have to pay for wealthy people to have nicer houses. Come on now.
Over. Thank you, Ms. Rich. Thank you, sir. Jasper Leach, who will be followed by Curtis Manning.
Hi, everybody. Most of my concerns were definitely addressed by a lot of the excellent previous speakers, but just as a side note, I'm a UC Berkeley alumni. I graduated in 2008, which is curiously the year that the Oak Grove incident happened. So when I heard about this yesterday, of course via some alternate internet source on Facebook, it really smacked of the same thing. Connected with, I believe, the first two women that spoke about UCSF's aspirations a few years ago. I'm sure that Berkeley has more aspirations there, just as they did when they cut down all the oaks, historical oaks, that there was a mass protest against. Berkeley overrode it. So if you think that UCB cares about oak populations, you've got to be out of your mind. On top of that, I'd like to reiterate my contempt that this was not more publicly known, that we all found out about this in the last couple of days, and that it's taking place as UCB has its finals and most of the kids are going home for the summer. So this is obviously meant to slip by everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leach. Curtis Manning, who will be followed by Melissa Washburn.
Yes, I was notified this morning by a friend who already spoke. It's kind of endemic, I think. For instance, there's a One Bay Area EIR, which was due on Thursday. All comments were due. Did anybody hear about that? No. There's large-scale stuff happening to us, and we don't know about it.
Yeah.
Well, I read a little bit. I didn't get much of a chance to see it, but I read a little bit about what the university is going to do to Strawberry Canyon, and I heard a little bit from other people about how they plan to put development in there. Well, I've been in Berkeley since 1960, and I've been in Berkeley since 1960, and I really loved that canyon behind the university, Strawberry Canyon. They used to have a hiking club that took care of it, but they kind of went out, and now the, blackberry bushes of poison oak are closing in. We really need to maintain these trails, and there are forests. The university owns it, but it's the city, it's the state of California's land, really. It's our land. It's not theirs to just go rent out to British Petroleum and Monsanto, and to allow them to spray Roundup at the top of our watershed, which is what it is. And the tides are changing. People want to be involved ourselves. We need to hire the people that don't have any jobs to do this work, not to hire out these operating engineers to come up with large machines, cut them down and throw poison on afterwards. If there needs to be poison, you could as well have some young men and women up there to cut those suckers off that come up.
Right.
And they could be the ones who are watering new trees to come in. This top-down concept has got to have an end sometime. We're the people of this region here, and we want to say in it, you cut us out of the project like we don't matter. We have the same problem in the city of Berkeley. It's a big endemic problem. It's probably caused by TV. Everybody's watching TV while the stuff is going down. Well, I don't know if I need 30 seconds, but I would like to say that I did hear about what was happening on the south side of Claremont Canyon. By careful attention to the land, I think that's what we need to do. It's as clear, and that's the alternative, which they don't have in there. And I would suggest to them that they have a people's alternative to put into this EIR, and they give us a chance to put one together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Melissa Washburn. Ms. Washburn will be followed by Joanne Orengo.
Hi, my name is Melissa Washburn, and I was born and raised here in Berkeley. My parents built their first house in 1947, right on the edge of the Tilden Park. I spent all of my childhood and every day after school running through the trails, the deer trails, and playing in the forest. People who say that nothing grows in a eucalyptus forest are absolutely wrong. I can tell you many species of plants and animals that live there. There are thousands of migratory birds that come through and rest in the forest on their way up and down the coast. There are endangered species. There's the red-legged frog that lives in the waterways up in Tilden Park and would be absolutely destroyed if these forests were deforested. Pardon? Okay. So I am extremely concerned with any alteration of the forests that exist. As previous people have stated, these forests have been there for over 100 years. And we need to protect them. We need to find ways to keep as many trees as possible. Trees are protecting us from the pollution in our environment, the pollution that we have created as humans. I think that we need to try to find ways to look at the forests in a different way. They're not just a fire fuel that is a danger to your houses. They are a home for many creatures, and they are part of the web of life. And we can't just look at them in this singular way of a fire danger. Every tree gives us, takes out pollutants that we as humans have created. It takes out pollutants like sulfur and nitrogen and particulate matter and sulfur dioxide and carbon monoxide. And these things in small quantities are extremely damaging to human health. And it's been shown that even small changes in those, in the ability of ecosystems to, if they remove the trees, even small amounts of change in those kinds of abilities that trees have to remove those pollutants from our environment can adversely affect human health and every other creature on this planet. So please protect your creatures. I know that there are other ways to protect houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Washburn. Our next speaker is Joanne Orengo, and I understand there may have been a question or two about, is my card going to come in the queue? I have roughly 35 additional comment cards. If you filled out a comment card, I do have it. Following Joanne Orengo will be Michael Warburton, followed by Phoebe Sorgan, David McFarland, Warren Schick, Shalon Newman, Trevor Darrell, and that's about the next 8 or 10 in the queue. Is Ms. Orengo here? All right, then we'll move on to Michael Warburton.
I'm Michael Warburton. I'm executive director of a group called the Public Trust Alliance, and as some of the previous speakers have said, you know, some resources are so important for public use that they aren't treated like private property. They're held in trust for future generations. And that's a big part of the law. And I'm actually using that law in commenting on environmental issues, where I try to ask trustees if they might do a better job of protecting public assets. And that is a real problem here, because the use of fire danger as a justification for commercializing dangerous chemicals is way out of control. Concentrations of flame retardants are absolutely out of control in the Bay Area. And it was the United Fire Marshals who came out in favor of flame retardant standards, which required flame retardants to be put in clothes and computer screens and all over the place. But it turned out that the tobacco industry, which wanted something else to blame for fires than cigarettes, and the chemical industry, which wanted to sell chemicals, were the main funders of the flame retardant standards. We're here when we don't know who to trust. We only found out about this meeting, and I'm among many people who only found out about this, so we're not experts on probably what your 20,000 page environmental impact statement. But there does come a time when the public must act to take action, even in the absence of total certainty. And all I'm asking is that the University of California maybe take a look at science and what science can offer us if we honestly ask the questions, and if the scientists could honestly answer them in public. That would be a really nice thing. And again, with the public trust doctrine, please, all the trustees which are legally involved in the assets which are being managed by this project, please do your first duty and listen to the public.
Thank you, Mr. Warburton. Phoebe Sorgan. Phoebe Sorgan, who will be followed by David McFarland, who will be followed by Warren Chick.
Hello, I'm Phoebe Sorgan. I have a degree in biology and I'm a long-term environmentalist. For eco reasons, I'm a vegetarian, increasingly vegan, and for the past 11 years I've been driving a little all-electric zero-emission buggy. So there's part of my credentials. Using chemical herbicides is completely unacceptable and will not be allowed by we the people. So the FEMA grants will be wasted unless acceptable alternatives are chosen. First alternative, people power is a tremendous resource. Instead of using herbicides, hire a cadre of currently unemployed workers to regularly snip starters that resprout. Give people jobs. That's a win-win, a possible acceptable alternative. Second alternative, for wood that can't be used for lumber or as erosion retainers and must be chipped, capture that methane, that decomposing methane, for energy use. Third modification, non-flammables must be cultivated to replace flammables. Clear cutting and 24-inch mulching is not acceptable, but please prioritize replanting native species, but also consider non-native pyroprotective species such as succulents and redwoods. Normally, I would trust even a non-native invasive tree more than I would trust post-Katrina FEMA or UCB or especially Monsanto. But that said, I did see footage of exploding ukes in the Oakland Hills fire. And I remember the dramatic, I was in San Francisco looking across the bay and I saw just the entire East Bay covered with orange and black smoke. So ever since then, I've been searching for proactive solutions, such as replacing redwoods with, replacing ukes with redwoods. But of course, that's very expensive. And so I was relieved, but only last week, to learn of the FEMA funds. Now, this is unacceptable. We need to have much more of a public process. I'm grateful for this public process. I'm especially grateful for all of you thoughtful and outspoken environmentalists who will not allow chemical herbicides. We need to stop this plan unless it can be acceptably modified by hiring unskilled, untrained manual labor to prevent regrowth of flammable vegetation and to cultivate, to prepare the terrain adequately and cultivate non-flammable plants. I care about wildlife. Don't let the wildlife burn. And don't let more huge fires smoke contribute to global warming. Global warming, of course, is increasing fire risk, and we need to address that. Thank you,
Ms. Sorgan. David McFarland, and Mr. McFarland will be followed by Warren Chick, who will be followed by Chilon Newman, followed by Trevor Darrell. Is Mr. McFarland here? We'll set his card aside and move to Warren Chick. Yes.
Yeah. I'm Larry Shoup. I live in Oakland, and I've been hiking in these hills for many decades. And I'm totally against this project. There's a lot to hate about this project. But let me just focus on one aspect. That is the use of the herbicides, the ecocide-producing, death-producing chemicals that they plan on spreading there. And they, in their own thing here that you can look at yourself, under health and safety, they admit that this is going to be a problem. Potential adverse health effects of herbicides on vegetation management workers, on nearby residents, and users of parks and open spaces. So they admit that this has an adverse health effect under their own criteria here. And they say this is going to be mitigated by restrictions on herbicide use and the use of best management practices. Well, I would submit, if you look in the EIS, you'll see that their restrictions are they're not going to put any in within 60 feet of any waterway or standing water, as if the 60 feet away doesn't wash into the waterway. Of course it's going to, obviously, and over time especially. Another restriction is you can't put it in if it's going to rain within 24 hours. Are they going to know when it's going to rain within 24 hours? Or if the wind is going to go above 10 miles an hour? So those are inadequate restrictions to begin with, and in any case, they're not going to be enforced. Who's going to enforce these restrictions? Is somebody going to be there watching them? Not that they're not going to be putting this pesticide closer than 60 feet of a waterway. It's absurd. There's going to be no enforcement of this. So the best management practice is not to spread these herbicides to begin with. And we have to organize to fight against that with nonviolent civil disobedience. And the alternative is hiring people, as many people have said. Let's use the money to create jobs for those that are unemployed, not help Monsanto poison our environment and cause more cancer for all of us.
Thank you. Shalon Newman, who will be followed by Trevor Darrell, who will be followed by Veronica Cole, and then Ann Novak.
Hi, my name is Shalon Newman, and I'm a lifetime resident of Berkeley. I grew up here, and I run in that Strawberry Creek Canyon 3 to 4 times a week. I have children, 2 young daughters who live here as well and hike up in those hills. My mom is, she helps up at Tilden Park in the little farm, and we love the Bay Area. We love to support what's here. There was a report published yesterday that came out in the AP Wire about the use of Roundup and its effects of these pesticides on our environment and on our bodies. And one of the things that I read in there was that the negative impact on the body is insidious and manifests slowly over time as inflammation damages cellular systems throughout the body. It can cause Parkinson's disease, cancer, and many other issues. And so, given that that was a report that just came out, and that now the EPA is considering whether it should be used in our environment at all, to think that this is something we're going to use thousands of pounds on all over our area in order to keep the eucalyptus from coming back makes me very concerned. I don't want this in my body, and I certainly don't want it in the bodies of my children. The other thing I'd like to say is I wonder about the inadvertent cause of soil erosion and creek contamination by both the contaminants from the pesticides and from the cutting of large amounts of trees all at once. What happens to the animal habitats that are lost? People have been talking a lot about what happened in Claremont Canyon, and that in that area, my understanding is there were only several hundred trees that were cut down, that were felled. And so to compare an area where several hundred trees were felled to an area we're talking about taking 20,000 trees out in just the Strawberry Creek Canyon area, to give an example, at once, I just don't see how that's the same. And we're not talking about replanting other trees to reforest that area and to really deal with that. And I'm really concerned about doing large amounts of cutting all at once. Several other people have talked about FEMA using funds to help homeowners do retrofitting and to clear their own overgrowth. I think that's an excellent use of funds as well. And I want to speak also to David Romaine, who was an educator in geography who spoke earlier, and just this idea of reforesting the barren areas that we've created, and if we are going to do large areas of cutting, to really consider alternatives to replanting other things and being careful and methodical about that reforestation. And I also wonder about how cutting so many hundreds of thousands of trees will affect the air quality in our area. I don't know if that's in the report, but I'd like to know if that was there too. So I hope that you will consider other alternatives to doing nothing and doing the current proposed project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. Yolanda Wong. Please.
I'm a long-term resident of Berkeley. I use Claremont Canyon and Strawberry Canyon regularly on a weekly basis. I'm up there running. I walk my dog. I love going there to watch the sunset after dinner. And I want to say that I am very upset that I did not find out about this until Thursday. If people who are doing this wanted to get input, it would be very easy. They could have posted notices at the beginning of those trails. There are quarterly advertisements from East Bay Regional Park. There is your neighbor newsletters from UC Berkeley, and I read those from front to back, and not one of them had a notice saying, we want to cut 60,000 trees in your hills. What do you think? On Friday, I found out about this late Thursday. On Friday, I called the Sierra Club, and I said, did you guys know about this? And they said, no. I called the Audubon Society. I said, did you know about this? And they said, no. So major players who are concerned about our environment have not been notified of this very drastic plan. In terms of people who made a horrendous statement that eucalyptus are desolate, that is absolutely not true. Last year on a trail in Claremont Canyon, a great horned owl made a nest and fostered an owlet, and it was huge and wonderful. I would get up at 7 in the morning, and I bought myself a pair of binoculars for the first time in my life. I'd run up there with my cup of coffee and sit there in the cold just to watch this little owl. And I know that lots of people did, lots of kids did it, and it was just tremendous to be that close to wildlife 5 minutes from my house. So I know that the owls live in those eucalyptus trees. I have heard them in the groves as we go around the corner. There is nothing in mitigation about what you're going to do when you destroy this habitat. Second of all, redwood trees. I've been on the Berkeley Parks and Recreation Commission for 10 years. I'm no longer on it. But one of the issues is people have these romanticized views of what will grow because redwoods are native. Well, they live in a very particular ecosystem. And if you drive along Highway 13, you will see that the highway maintenance people have planted redwood trees that are dying because it's not their native ecosystem. Now, along Claremont Canyon, which I'm familiar with, they planted these redwoods and they're babies. What I have seen when you plant redwoods in the wrong place that does not get enough moisture, especially during the hot months, is that when they hit age 20 and they're 25 to 35 feet tall, they start to die off. So the fact that it's been planted for 10 years and that's touted as a successful project is nothing in terms of the life of a redwood, which can live 1,000 years. So I think that until there is more careful study of what they're going to do in mitigation, the report in the EIR is inadequate. The last thing I want to say is about the issue of cancer. My father died of a bone marrow cancer, and I want to say that the oncologist, when the diagnosis came in, the first thing he said to my father is, "Are you a golfer?" Because golfers are exposed regularly to pesticides and herbicides, and they have a very high incidence of cancer. So we're going to be spreading this all over, and kids eat and touch. My dog, it runs through it. I'm going to be petting my dog. It's going to get all in our systems, and there's nothing in there about how that is going to be controlled or prevented. Thank you.
Going to the farmer's market with my girlfriend. No announcement given. I am the most Facebook and Twitter savvy man you will ever meet. If there's a YouTube video worth seeing, I will see it. And the only reason I found out about this is because I put together a Google Alerts, and I found it from an alternative news source, which, as a man of science, I already am skeptical about, but I checked it out anyway. And I came here today, and I heard people speak about their homes, where they live, where their kids live, where their families are, where their homes are. And we got to say it's enough after a certain point. We have to say it's enough. Yes, people have homes up there, but that is a lifestyle choice. And to pour chemicals that will then come down onto children and to remove animals that didn't have anything to do with that, it's unconscionable. And I'm sorry, but I'm not here to ask FEMA not to do this. I'm telling you, you will not do it. Because I will stand, I will put my body in front of any bulldozer, and you will not pour chemicals down. Now, the one thing I want you all to understand, too, is FEMA did not just come up and is not trying to take over America. A group, an organization, approached him and said, hey, we're worried about fires, which is true. We're all worried about fires. So this is what they put together for us. However, what they put together for us is 3 books like this. How are we supposed to physically have time to read this, let alone to educate ourselves? But we don't have to, because all of this is a distraction. Because the bottom line is, no chemicals, just period. No. Monsanto, go away. Give us the keys to your buildings, turn off your lights, and stop doing business, because we're not giving up. All right? Thank you all. Now, if anybody would like to come to the March Against Monsanto, who, by the way, makes the Roundup chemicals that are going to be poured onto us and our children, I have flyers. Please take one. There's enough for all of you all. March 25th in cities all across the world, people are marching against Monsanto because they're in bed with our government. Look up Monsanto for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Don't ever take anybody's word for it. All right? Even if they speak passionately and they're very well dressed. March 25th. Yeah. Sorry, thank you. May 25th. See, that's why we're here to look out for each other. Now, that being said, I want to thank FEMA for even giving us this opportunity, for handling it well, and I would like to request a way that all of us can access the footage that was filmed, if that is possible. That's it. Thank you all, and have a great day.
Alan Bernheimer.
My name is Alan Bernheimer. I'm a Berkeley resident since 1985. I came here today with an open mind, having heard about this issue as little as 24 hours ago, like most of you at FEMA. I appreciate your patience, your diligence in going all through this, but you should seriously question the adequacy of the notification process if stakeholders such as the eloquent people in this room this morning and clubs and organizations such as the Sierra Club and other environmental organizations were unaware of it. You may have a defective notification process that may not survive litigation. I don't know. I'd be surprised if there isn't litigation after all the passion we've heard this morning. There's been passion on both sides, pro and con, and I came here, as I said, with an open mind, because I am a Berkeley homeowner. I'm in the flats, but the 1920s Berkeley fire stopped just 10 blocks short of where I live, so I don't feel immune. On the other hand, when I tell people how happy I am to live in the East Bay, I say it's because in 10 minutes I can be up in the woods. I don't say it's because in 10 minutes I can be up in the wood chips. This is not FEMA's plan. FEMA is a government agency tasked with administering the NEPA process for determining the environmental adequacy of this plan. The proponents, UC Berkeley, City of Oakland, East Bay Regional Park District, this is their plan. FEMA, in its role, was required to come up with a draft environmental impact statement for which they are gathering public impact today, public input. But this is not FEMA's plan, so let's not attack FEMA. FEMA, we don't want an either-or binary process where we must accept this plan or do nothing. That is simply unacceptable. Proponents, that is unacceptable. You've heard the passion in this room. You're going to have a lot of opposition, and it shouldn't have taken a firestorm of internet activity last night to get people out here. So in summary, I don't want to repeat things that a lot of other people have said very eloquently here this morning, but we need a better plan for fire safety that addresses our concerns about our woods. I'm not a huge eucalyptus fan, but when I want to walk in the woods, I don't want to walk in barren hills with a couple of clumps of trees and bushes. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. March Hall.
I'm vehemently opposed to this project as it stands. I think it needs to go back to the drawing board.
March Hall, who would be followed by Raleigh Latham, followed by Will Godet, then David Williams, and Teddy Crawford.
Hi there.
Who's here from FEMA? Who am I addressing from FEMA? Okay, hi, thanks. So, I worked as a building inspector and an engineer, and I know FEMA, through that work, have done great work funding hazard mitigation. You've reinforced public buildings, you make great handbooks for engineers, but this proposal, I can't even, I'm speechless. It's an outrage to call it hazard mitigation when it's going to engender so much hazard. I think one of the worst issues in the hills in terms of fuel load are houses and wood roofs. This does nothing to address that, nothing. There are more nuanced, sustainable, safer approaches, but they're decentralized, labor intensive, not so dramatic, not so profitable. I'm a person with a disability. I have a chemical injury, partly as a result of occupational exposure to pesticides. So I have a lot of feelings about this issue. One day I was walking, I also walk in Strawberry Canyon. One day I was walking in the hills, and there was a white truck on the fire road, and they were driving along the fire road. It was a University of California truck, and they had, the window was open, and there was a guy holding a spray rod just spraying the side of the road. No warning to hikers, no protection for workers, no concern about drift. And these are the people you're going to give money to for hazard mitigation? This is... I think you picked up on the fact that in the Bay Area, we have a proud history of protest. We follow, unlike most of the country, many of us believe in the precautionary principle. We will defend that habitat with our bodies. You will see a firestorm in the hills, and it'll be a firestorm of people power.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Ray Latham. Will Goday. David Williams. Is Mr. Williams here? Teddy Crawford. Ms. Crawford would be followed by Sheila Schwartzberg, Varya Fedoraya, Jeff Newfie.
Hi, thanks for staying. How many have grandchildren or children? Raise your hand. Okay. One reason I'm here, one reason I fought GMOs. I have a little tale to tell you, because I'm sure most of you don't have time to always look up facts, and when you retire you have lots of time. I was a little concerned about Michael Taylor. Does anyone know who he is? Michael Taylor was a lawyer, outside lawyer for Monsanto. Then he went in-house, and now he's the guardian at the FDA for human safety. Go look up FDA and some of the rules, but one of them, how long do you think you should study something like Roundup, genetic engineering, inserting a pesticide into a gene of corn? 3 months, that should do it. Anyone who has any scientific awareness of anything, starting with biology, knows that's absolutely absurd. Almost as absurd as your plan to strip everything. First of all, carbon goes into the green. The green absorbs carbon. It's succinct, whether it's grass or leaves. To chop all that down is just ensuring more carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere. Forget methane. No one even dares talk about that. Look it up. Human power and money has garnered so much hubris, it's appalling. So you can come in and think, oh, you've got a degree, you've got a lot of money. I don't know who's behind you, but I love that sign. Follow the money. I don't know who's behind you or what you think about your role in society or how you sleep at night to propose something this atrocious.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Sheila Schwartzberg. Ms. Schwartzberg. Varya